Hi everyone. This is the beginning of a new series of videos on my channel where I pick one Bon Jovi song and I do an in-depth analysis on what makes it so great and so memorable. Essentially, I'll be doing a deep dive into the instrumentation, the harmonies, the lyrics, and basically anything that I can really notice or think of that makes that song so memorable. So I thought it was really fitting to start with Living On A Prayer, seeing as it's the band's biggest song. So here's a bit of backstory on Living On A Prayer. It was written and released in 1986 for the band's third album, Slippery When Wet. With the release of that album, and this song in particular, Bon Jovi were just catapulted into unprecedented levels of stardom. Stardom they could not have dreamed of, and it was large in part due to this song. It remained at number 1 for about a month straight, and to this date, Slippery When Wet has sold about 30 million copies, so it was safe to say it was quite popular. I was considering what format would be best to make this video in. At first I was thinking I would start by going through the harmony and the structure of the song, and then I would talk about the lyrics and the instrumentation, but I think I've decided that I'm just gonna go through the song as it plays almost and talk about it chronologically. So the introduction opens very, very atmospherically. That's the number one word that I would use to describe this intro. It is very atmospheric. It starts with this tiny hint of synths that gradually grow. Everything is crescendoing, it's slowly, gradually building to something of a bit more substance. The chords are rising in these steps, the volume is gradually growing, the dynamics are growing, the texture is becoming thicker as more instruments join in. At first it's just the synths, and then you get a bit of percussion, and then the bass and the talk box and all of that. The texture becomes thicker. The intro establishes that we are in the key of E minor, and throughout the song they tend to borrow from various scales and modes, specifically Aeolian mode. The intro also provides us with this extremely iconic bass line, written by Hugh MacDonald, not Alec John Such. Alec was obviously the original Bon Jovi bassist, but he was not really on the studio albums, that was Hugh. I've always said that Alec has infinitely more stage presence and he's really the epitome of a rock star. However, Hugh's playing on a technical level I think is quite out of Alec's realm. That being said, I'm not a bassist, I don't really know anything about bass, but that's just always been my personal view. The final thing that the intro really introduces us to is Richie Sambora on the talk box, which is a huge attribute of the song. It's very recognisable very quickly. Now I know that the talkbox had been used in plenty of music beforehand, but I think that this song really reinvented it. I suppose it turned something that was maybe a bit peculiar into a whole new phenomenon. I mean, after the explosion of this song, you started to see other bands like Motley Crue using the talkbox, which I could be very wrong, but I don't think that it was actively being used in that scene before Bon Jovi. But naturally, it did remain a very signature sound for Bon Jovi. They used it in plenty of hits afterwards. They used it in Bad Medicine, It's My Life obviously, but then they also used it in lesser known songs like I Want To Be Loved. They really got their mileage out of the talkbox. But I think at the very core of it, the thing that is the most important part of this intro that really sets up the song is that rising chord progression, that feeling of climbing up to something, because that sticks throughout pretty much the rest of the song. Okay, moving on to the verse, which consists of 3 main chords: chord 1, chord 6 and chord 7, otherwise known as the tonic, the submediant and the subtonic. This isn't anything out of the ordinary for a rock song, but it does give the sense of climbing. It jumps from 1 and then it reaches up to 6 and then 7 and then it comes back down to 1. It's very much rising, and that climbing gives it a heightened sense of tension and excitement. We can feel that it's leading somewhere, we just don't know where yet, which I suppose sets up the entire song being about hope and being about perseverance and resilience. This is naturally where the vocals first come in. In fact, let's listen to a snippet of Jon Bon Jovi's line delivery in this verse.
Tommy used to work on the docks. Union's been on strike. He's down on his luck, it's tough.
Listening to this song and this vocal performance in particular, and plenty of others, it really does not surprise me that Jon Bon Jovi proceeded to get into acting later in his career, because he's always been that very over-the-top performer. If you look at some of his old vocal work, in fact, if you look at any of his vocal work, you can really see the theatrics in his performances. He sells that story. It's not just through the lyrics or the lines of the song, he is fully telling that story through the grit in his voice, the emotion in his voice. Also, if you watch him perform on stage, the way that he holds his body, the way that he uses the surrounding space, it's very much like an actor on a stage. He is performing the song and he's not just relying on the lyrics to tell you what's happening. These vocals in these verses come from really deep within. They're really gritty, they're raspy, they're emotional. One thing about Jon Bon Jovi's voice is that he's a really emotional singer. He knows when to bring it up and then when to bring it back down again. Not everything is this extreme, over-the-top, grandiose, oh, look at me, I can sing so well. He knows when you need to bring it down so that those big moments have more of an impact, which I think is a great quality for a singer to have, because you do get those singers that just sing everything as powerfully as they can, but they don't value that dynamic contrast. And I think Jon Bon Jovi really finds a great balance. So anyway, in the pre-chorus we have a new progression, the fifth, or the minor dominant, and then the sixth and the seventh again. So again, it keeps with that climbing motif, still in steps. If you notice that I said the minor dominant as opposed to the major dominant, I think that's quite an important detail. You wouldn't think it because they're both still the fifth chord. However, the major dominant would contain the leading note, that sharpened raised note in the harmonic minor scale. The leading note, as the name would suggest, leads you back into the tonic, which creates a very clear sense of resolution. The minor dominant does not contain that sharpened leading note, and that's what Bon Jovi used here. And I think that definitely 100% delays the arrival of a true cadence. It keeps the momentum going. In Western music, we're very attuned to hearing a perfect cadence, and we know that that's kind of the end. It would most definitely put a bit of a stop, or at least a halt, on the momentum. You would feel like it was more of a resolve, more like a finish. Whereas without that leading note, it 100% still feels like it's the momentum's building, it's keeping going. Which is what you want because it's the pre-chorus. You want to let it build up for the chorus. The chorus is the most important part of the whole song. The chorus is insane in this song, and you really want everything else to be leading up to that, and for that to be the pinnacle. And another thing about the pre-chorus that just makes it so great is that Jon Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora are harmonizing in thirds, which I don't have anything really to say about. It's just, I love thirds. It's like the king of intervals, I'm sorry. So then after this pretty insane pre-chorus, obviously we reach the actual chorus. While the bare bones and the underlying structure of the chorus is pretty much the same as the verse, everything happening instrumentally just makes it completely different. For starters, the melody is a lot higher, which I suppose gives the sense that it's very triumphant. I think of it like the verse being the skeleton and then the chorus having all the meat and flesh on it. One of the most important aspects of this chorus that really makes it sound the way that it does is the bass line. A lot of bass lines, particularly nowadays, tend to follow the guitar part like a child clinging to its mother, too scared to properly deviate or really establish itself. And this bass line is quite literally the opposite. I mean, naturally it follows the progression of the song, but it's very much its own separate melody. Whilst the vocal melody goes up on that whoa, the bass line comes down, like counteracting it. It's literally counterpoint. It's not Bach fugue counterpoint, but it's still counterpoint, which makes me so excited. The bass line is just this entirely independent melody that doesn't merely double the vocal part or the guitar part. It's just on its own, and it fits the song so perfectly. It's such an important part. And I think people don't appreciate it as much as it should be appreciated. In the bass line itself, there's so much contrary motion, as I just said, with the vocals, that it's literally... The contrary motion just keeps everything moving. It's just a masterclass in bass writing. It's one of my all-time favourite bass lines. Elsewhere in the chorus, we're really introduced to Bon Jovi's vocal power. If you weren't already aware, or if you're new to the channel, or new to Bon Jovi in general, all 5 members of that band, that original lineup, are incredible singers. Backing vocals in the chorus really help to pad out the song. They're a big part of the meat, the flesh that I was talking about before. They are very important. It would sound very thin without it, I think. And again, that it helps to highlight the contrast between the verses and the chorus, because there's no real backing vocals in that first verse. Anyway, aside from that, the chorus is really the resolution that I was talking about before. After all of that, oh, where are we going to end up? Like, where are we building to? Where are we going to find ourselves harmonically in the pre-chorus? We finally end up back at the tonic in the chorus. It's a very much deserved resolution. It feels earned. The second verse continues on pretty much the same as the first verse, just with a few deviations in the guitar and talkbox parts, which sound great, and also a couple slightly groovier rhythms in the main melody line. It definitely feels like something's ramping up because there's a bit more instrumentally going on, even though it's essentially the same as the first verse. We also get that one special line where it's like, baby, it's okay. You know, that, sorry, I can't sing.
Baby, it's okay someday.
But that part, it takes us a bit higher. It feels like something, again, is ramping up. I also want to talk about David's part, David Bryan, the keyboardist. He's essentially got two different parts on what I assume is two different keyboards. On one part, he's doing that 1, 6, 7 motif, that rising thing from the beginning. And then in the other one, he's doing these staccato-ish repeated chords. What I really love is when you isolate these parts, you can hear all these little tiny minor, I don't know, they're sort of like blemishes. I wouldn't say they're mistakes because I don't know, they could actually be intentional. I just love that you can hear these, I really don't know how to describe it, they're like mini acciacchaturas where he accidentally maybe squishes the note next to it. I think it adds a lot of character to the song. David's synths playing is really integral to the song. I know I keep saying that about every part, but if you took away these synths, it would feel so flat. One of the things that really elevates and characterises Bon Jovi's early sound in these 80s albums, and especially on this album, on Slippery When Wet, is that glittery, shimmery keyboard feel that David provides. This song is not purely gritty rock, like something you would find on Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction or something. It's got that shimmery feel. There's this element of shine to it, which is 100% David's doing. When we get to the next chorus, it's kind of like a full colour moment, and I'm not just talking about the music video where it actually switches to full colour, but I'm saying that the song suddenly becomes a bit more vibrant. Not fully, it's not a huge change, it's quite subtle, but it definitely feels more vibrant. Everything is mostly the same, but everything is just a tiny bit ramped up. The saturation of the sound, if you will, just seems to be a bit higher. At the end of that second chorus, we get that added Livin On A Prayer, that part which I can't sing. And that is definitely a great transition into the solo. The vocal delivery is phenomenal. I mean, the vocal delivery is so phenomenal that he kind of struggles with it live sometimes, especially, you know, post-80s, post-90s. As he started to get a bit older, that note he really started to struggle with. Also, the bass is great. There's a big jump that the bass does. It jumps up with the melody. The solo itself is not overly flashy, which is exactly what the song needs. It completely plays out to the song's favour that it's not overly bombastic or flashy or show-offy. Richie Sambora is one of the world's most talented guitarists, and one of the things that makes him so brilliant is his ability to hold back and choose his moments. A bit like John with his voice, Richie Sambora also doesn't overdo it in moments where it wouldn't serve the song properly. Occasionally I think bands will get carried away and want to show off and shoehorn rapid solos into songs that maybe it doesn't quite fit into, but Richie Sambora knows how to serve a song exactly what it needs and not to overdo it. It's an absolutely great solo, and while it's not overly flashy, it is fascinating still, because, I mean, if you listen to the solo, you will realise it is essentially the bass line from the chorus. Which I just absolutely love, because how many songs do you know where the guitar part takes from the bass like that? Where there's this role reversal between the guitar and the bass line, and the guitar starts literally just playing the bass line. I mean, it's really unique. Maybe I just haven't noticed it in other songs, maybe it's something that happens all the time, but to me, I think, obviously, he doesn't spend the entire solo playing that bass line. It's just, you know, the beginning of it. He goes da 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 da. It's the bass line, which I just love. I think that that's a really unique songwriting choice. The bridge is really interesting structurally because we have a bar of 3/4 just out of the blue. I mean, think about it. You're counting this entire song in 4/4 the whole time. If you're counting it, you're like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. And then suddenly, you know, you can feel the intensity brewing. You're like, oh, we're gonna go to the final chorus, it's gonna be great. And you're counting, and then suddenly you're just smacked with a time signature change, which is fascinating because you really, really don't expect it. It really makes the key change that much more impactful because you have absolutely no time to prepare for it. Before you've even finished counting the previous bar, you're literally smacked with a flipping minor third modulation. It's not a half step, it's not even a whole tone, it's not a semitone, it's not a whole tone, it is literally a minor third. That's 3 semitones. You are going up a considerable amount, and you literally haven't even finished counting the bar before it. It is a really, really great choice because it just makes it feel like such an enormous shift. Even if the chords are exactly the same, we're just in G minor now as opposed to E minor. It feels like such a huge shift. It's another one of those really full colour moments in the song. For the final chorus, it's no secret that the vocals are really the star of the show. Jon Bon Jovi is hitting C5 off the top of my head. Is it a C5? I do not know. I'll have to... If I'm wrong, then I will overlay the correct note on the screen. I actually have a full video analysing Jon Bon Jovi's vocal range if you're interested. I really recommend checking it out. It's one of my favourite videos I've made. It took me a very long time to make as well because I don't have perfect pitch, very sad. In his heyday, this man was absolutely untouchable vocally. Not only just to hit these notes,
Whoa! Living on a prayer!
but to sing them with such power, with such grit from the chest, no falsetto. The fact that it's literally just him belting those notes is unbelievable. And the fact that there are videos and audio tapes of him singing this live in this key. At this point, Bon Jovi have probably played the song in every key imaginable because they keep lowering it because John's voice keeps getting worse. But man, some of those old live performances literally just take your breath away. It's just ridiculous. It's ludicrous. And I think that's another huge component of why this song is so great. I mean, it's probably one of the absolute greatest live songs ever. Even now, when Jon Bon Jovi cannot sing a note, people go insane for it. Like, it doesn't matter that the band aren't singing because the crowd is performing the song for the band. Here are some of my favourite Livin On A Prayer live performances, and I really recommend that you check them out if you haven't already. Lastly, I just want to touch on the lyrics a bit because I feel like I talked a bit about them in the verse and then mostly skipped over them. This song was truly a collaboration between Jon Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora and Desmond Child. And the three of them all had very different ideas for what the song was going to be about. Desmond, I think, based Gina on an old girlfriend of his who was possibly nicknamed Gina. I can't quite remember. But I know that Jon Bon Jovi's portion of the song, or sort of perspective of the song, was that he based it on these two people that he knew in high school, where the guy was like, you know, typical high school jock or something, and he was a baseball player and he was doing well, he was about to go to college, but his girlfriend got pregnant, and so he left it all behind to go and be a dad, essentially, and be a family. So that was what the song came from John's perspective. So I think that collaboration aspect was really important into making it as relatable as it is, because it's just numerous perspectives rolled into one. So there it is. That's what I think makes Livin On A Prayer such an amazing song to this day. Please let me know what you think makes this song so incredible. If there's anything I missed, or if there's anything that I got wrong, because me trying to explain music theory is like a toad trying to pilot an aircraft. I'm really not a music theory whiz, but I tried my best. I'm going to university next week for the first time, so God help me. Also, I want to say I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded in like 3 weeks, because this video took a while, but also I've just been insanely busy preparing for uni. Please let me know which Bon Jovi song you would like me to analyse next. Or just any kind of video that you want to see from me. I don't mind, I'm always open to suggestions. Thank you so much for watching, and bye!